Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my firm assists physicians with employment contract issues. I came in early on a Sunday, figured I'd knock out a few videos. So today I am going to talk about what should be included in a physician offer letter. So we'll just kind of go through what would be standard and then kind of what an offer letter is. So first, what is an offer letter? So when a physician is looking for a job, many times the employer will require them to sign an offer letter, which kind of has the general terms of the employment relationship prior to giving them the actual employment agreement. So they're two separate documents. Sometimes I find in academia, so if a physician is moving into an academic position, maybe a mix of clinical and academic, many of the universities will offer them kind of a letter of intent / offer letter that they consider the contract, and then it refers back to dozens of policies and procedures that they have in mind. But today, let's just talk about kind of a general offer letter. So usually a hospital, healthcare network, something like that, they will be the ones that will require the offer letter prior to offering the physician the actual employment contract. I find most smaller physician-owned practices kind of skip the offer letter. They just maybe will kind of verbally talk about the terms and then just present the employment agreement to the physician. So let's say you are coming out of training and the hospital has said, we want to offer you an employment agreement. However, we want to give you an offer letter first, and then we'll agree to those terms, and then you sign it. At that point, then we'll move forward with the employment agreement. So normal things that should be in an offer letter, usually, the term of the agreement, so how long it lasts, maybe a brief statement about how the contract can be terminated. Usually the without cause portion of that would be the only thing mentioned, meaning how much notice has to be provided by either party to terminate the agreement without cause, usually 60 or 90 days. It'll also obviously have your compensation. So what is the base salary? Maybe if there's some kind of productivity bonus, so based upon RVU production, net collections, they would put at least a basic kind of calculation of what the expectation would be. So in this case, if there was some kind of RVU bonus expectation, the offer letter normally would have, okay, what is the annual RVU expectation, or maybe what the quarterly expectation is, and then what's the compensation factor? So what is the RVUs, what are they multiplied by monetarily to get whatever the bonus is. If it's net collections, they could even put an actual threshold. So if you generate over, 200,000 in a quarter, you'd get a certain percentage of that as well. So compensation, termination, maybe a brief statement on what some of the restrictive covenants are. So restrictive covenants are things that the physician can't do after the contract ends. So normally non-compete, non-solicit, non-disparagement. In this case, the non-compete is kind of the most important part. So sometimes an offer letter will put the basic terms of the non-compete. So how long does it last? And then what's the geographic restriction? And then maybe, what type of specialty. There are some physicians who can do multiple things. And so it'll kind of state what are those things exactly they can and can't do. Like, for instance, if you're in internal medicine, you could have primary care, be a hospitalist, maybe do some ED, urgent care. So usually the contract would state, all right, you can't do what you're doing for us, for a year within 10 miles. But you don't want like a blanket, you can't practice medicine at all within that time period. Also, what could be in the offer letter, who you report to, the locations that you'll practice in, malpractice insurance. So, what the coverage limits will be. And then if it's a claims made policy, who pays for tail insurance? Just basic stuff that matters. I mean, I find most of the time it's just based upon compensation. That's what they care about the most. And then also signing bonus, relocation assistance. So how much is the employer going to pay a signing bonus, and then how much are they going to help the with the physician moving to whatever location it is. So once those basic agreements are met and the physician is okay with it, then they sign the offer letter, give it to the employer, and then the employer will then present the physician with the employment agreement. Now, number one question I get is the offer letter binding? Well, for the most part, no. In this scenario, if it's with a private employer or a hospital, health network, the offer letter is not binding. Really, the only situation where it may be binding is if it's, as I stated before, in academia, and it's a university that's providing the offer letter of intent, and they kind of consider that. The employment agreement as well. In that case, could be binding, but for the most part, unless it specifically states this is the contract as well, the offer letter is not binding. So the physician could potentially back out after signing the offer letter. I mean, many times the basic tenets of an employment contract are fine. And then once we see the actual employment agreement and the terms of it, it's much worse, or it's maybe different, or the language, in an offer letter might sound, or, the basics might sound great. Then when we get into the contract and look at the specifics of the language, it's not great. So that happens frequently. Or if there's terms not listed in the offer letter and then they show up in the employment agreement, and it could substantially change whether the employment is actually, great, a great opportunity, and maybe it's not so great. So those are the basic things that have to go into an offer letter, and also whether it's binding, and then kind of what follows with the employment contract. Is an offer letter important? I don't think it is. I mean, generally, the terms are kind of reached verbally before they get to an employment agreement. I always find it's much easier to tell someone if a job is kind of a great opportunity or maybe a potential red flag after we see the agreement. Going over an offer letter with a physician, I mean, it's fine to kind of break down, all right, is this comp industry standard or not? But ultimately, I always tell the physician when I'm reviewing contract for them, we got to see the contract before I can tell you whether this is an overall good potential opportunity or not. So anyway, if you have any questions about offer letters, please contact my firm. You can call us at the number listed below in the description, or you can always reach us through our website, chellelaw.com. That's CHELLE law.com. Appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.